When you look at a brilliant emerald or a deep blue sapphire, maybe that perfect pigeon blood ruby, you're really seeing the end of a journey, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. You see the velvet box, the sparkle under the lights, the final polish.
But the real story of these colored gemstones, I mean, how they get from the raw earth to a piece of jewelry, that's almost completely hidden.
Mm-hmm.
It's less about, massive high-tech industry and so much more about painstaking human effort.
And geology, of course.
Exactly. And increasingly ethics. So today, we're doing a deep dive that goes way beyond the retail showcase. Our goal is to map out the modern supply chain. We want to understand the true cost, the intense physical labor, the geological scarcity, and the commitment to sustainability.
It's such a crucial shift in perspective. The geology, the formation of these stones under incredible heat and pressure, that's ancient history.
Billions of years old.
But the way we extract them, that has fundamentally changed in just the last couple of decades. We're moving away from that old paradigm of, large, anonymous extractive operations. If you're handling a high-quality sapphire or ruby today, you are most likely engaging with a system that prioritizes local ownership and environmental responsibility.
And that structural change is really where we have to start, isn't it? Because it frames everything else.
It does.
Our research shows that a huge percentage of the global supply of colored gems now comes from small and mid-scale, locally owned mines.
And that local ownership is the key. These are often structured as employee-owned operations or local cooperatives.
Which creates a completely different picture than the historical view of gem mining.
Night and day. Historically, the profits just flowed outward away from the source.
Of course.
Today, the goal is to keep that value locked within the community that produces the stone. This model thrives in regions where mining isn't just an industry, it's a primary source of livelihood. It's cultural.
So we're talking about key producing areas, right? Places like Sri Lanka for its sapphire,
Madagascar, with its incredible diversity of deposits.
Tanzania, Zambia for emeralds, and of course Colombia.
Precisely. And in these places, when you structure an operation as a cooperative, it just completely alters the dynamic. It means the miners themselves have a shared, direct financial stake in the yield.
They're partners.
They're partners, not just employees.
Okay, it sounds ideal on paper, but I have to ask, if a cooperative is small, doesn't that make them more vulnerable, to market volatility or pressure from illegal mining? They don't have the deep pockets of some massive corporation.
That is the essential challenge. And it's exactly why transparency is so important. So while they might lack scale, they gain resilience through community buy-in. And they have a direct line to ethical buyers who are willing to pay a premium for that traceability.
I see.
This structure also incentivizes three crucial things. First, rigorous safety standards because your partners are your neighbors. Second, equitable income. And third, long-term stewardship of the land. They're managing an asset that has to sustain their grandchildren.
So they're not going to just pillage it and abandon the site.
Exactly. The incentives are completely different.
That long-term view is so powerful. And the financial benefits, they must spill far beyond just the individual paychecks.
Oh, they do. We've seen incredible examples. Because the mine's success is directly tied to the welfare of the surrounding town, the co-op's own rules often require a fixed percentage of revenue to be reinvested locally.
Can you give us a tangible example? What does that reinvestment actually look like on the ground?
Certainly. In parts of Madagascar, for instance, we've seen mining co-ops use their profits to build infrastructure the government could never fund.
Like what?
Like potable water systems, or paving roads so they can get the gems to market safely. In Tanzania, we've seen funds pooled to build and stock medical clinics.
Wow.
That can cut travel time for a family needing basic health care from a full day to, 15 minutes.
So it's not just a feel-good story. It's a self-sustaining economic model where the geology is literally funding the infrastructure of a society.
That's it. When you buy a responsibly sourced gemstone, you are, by extension, contributing directly to the capacity building of that remote community. It shifts the whole narrative from extraction to mutual development.
Okay, so we've established the ethical and financial backbone. Now let's leave the meeting room and go underground. What's the physical reality?
Right.
Getting these stones out of the ground must require a level of patience and endurance that is just hard to imagine.
Okay.
Let's talk about the daily life of the miner.
The daily work is an astonishing blend of sheer physical labor and this almost meditative attention to detail.
And we're not talking about massive automated earth movers here.
No, we're talking about highly skilled, methodical manual labor in often very challenging environments. Hot, damp, deep underground.
Let's walk through the steps. I think it really emphasizes how demanding the process is.
Okay, so the first, most physically training step is removing the overburden. The layers of rock and soil that sit on top of the gem-bearing gravel, the alluvium. This can mean going down into hand-dug shafts, maybe dozens of feet deep, with simple hand tools, picks, shovels.
Just to reach the right layer.
Just to reach that specific geological layer, the pay dirt that contains the crystals.
So once they bring that ore up, that's when the washing and sorting starts. And that's where the patience comes in, I imagine.
That is the critical stage. The heavy gem-bearing gravel gets washed, often using sluices or simple mesh screens. It's all about isolating the heavier materials.
Because the gemstones are denser.
Exactly. Gemstones like corundum, that's sapphire, and ruby and beryl, which is emerald, are much denser than the surrounding rock. You're concentrating the potential treasure.
But the real skill is in that final sorting, isn't it? The literal hand sifting. You're looking at the slurry of mud and rock, and you have to find what?
A potential crystal. The final separation is done by hand, often across these shallow trays. Imagine sorting a truckload of gravel to find just a handful of very specific small pieces.
How can they even tell?
It's a skill that's developed over years, sometimes passed down through generations. They learn to spot these subtle indicators. A specific oily luster, a distinct crystal structure, even a density that just feels right in the hand.
So they have to know the difference between a potential gem and hundreds of other types of workless rock.
Absolutely. And missing one high-quality, perfectly structured rough gem could be the difference between a good week for the cooperative and a really challenging one. Speed has to be completely sacrificed for precision.
The work must be so slow.
It is. And everything is recorded for safety and inventory. The fact that this intense, specific skill is so necessary, it highlights why the labor component of a natural gemstone's price is so significant.
The stone is valued not just for its beauty, but for the hundreds of meticulous hours spent by a trained human eye just to identify it.
Precisely.
We touched on long-term stewardship earlier, and that leads us right to the environmental side of things. This land restoration. It's like a contract these responsible mines make with the land itself, right?
It is. They can't just walk away when a site is depleted.
Not in this model.
No, it's the fundamental guarantee of the modern ethical model. Responsible mining today means that adhering to strict guidelines for land rehabilitation is mandatory.
And the planning for that starts before they even finish digging.
It has to. The plan for reclamation must start before extraction even finishes.
So what does that restoration plan actually entail? I'm picturing them refilling these massive pits.
That's the first step, and the process is intensive. First, they refill the excavated areas, but they have to use clean backfill materials. And often, they reintroduce topsoil that was carefully saved before they even started digging.
To preserve the fertility, so it's not just filling a hole.
It's layering the earth back correctly. Then they have to focus on the hydrology.
The water flow.
Right. They reconstruct any natural water flow systems, like creeks or drainage patterns that might have been disrupted. Then comes the revegetation.
Planting native vegetation to stabilize the soil.
Yeah. Exactly. Using species that are indigenous to the local forest or grassland to ensure the ecosystem can recover quickly. But the contract doesn't end there.
No.
The site has to be monitored for years to ensure that it genuinely returns to supporting agriculture or a natural forest habitat. The ultimate measure of success is that the former mine eventually goes back to its pre-mining function.
That sounds incredibly expensive and time-consuming, which raises a question. Is this kind of ethical mining really sustainable on a large commercial scale? Or does it only work for these small co-ops?
It works because the market is shifting to demand it. While it adds cost, that cost gets absorbed by the increased value and marketability of a traceable ethical stone.
So consumers are driving the change.
They are. And the alternative, irresponsible extraction, it often leads to fines, shutdowns, and a poisoned reputation that just destroys the long-term viability of the community's primary asset. For these cooperatives, it's a simple investment in their own future.
Now we come to the part that, for me, just crystallized the true value of these stones, the scarcity factor. We've talked about the immense effort, the skill, the ethics. But all of that is poured into deposits that are, geologically speaking, almost empty. The yield is it's shockingly low.
This is the moment we connect all that human effort and geological rarity to the final price tag.
Yeah.
Colored gemstone deposits are extremely low yielding. The sheer volume of material you have to process to find one single high-quality crystal is staggering, even in the most famous production areas.
Okay, so let's use a real example. Let's start with sapphires. They're generally more abundant than rubies.
Right.
If you move a ton, that's 2,000 pounds of heavy, wet, dense gravel. What's the average return in cuttable material?
In many productive alluvial deposits, you're looking at a return of roughly 1 to 3 carats of cuttable sapphire per ton of gravel.
1 to 3 carats.
Per ton. And a carat is only 0.2 grams. So you move 2,000 pounds of rock to find maybe half a gram of potentially useful stone.
Half a gram.
And here's the crucial part. Even that tiny yield has to be highly filtered. Only a small fraction of that will have the transparency, the color, and the clarity to be considered fine jewelry grade.
1 to 3 carats per ton. That's an almost unbelievable return for the effort. And you said rubies are even harder to find.
Oh, significantly rarer. Ruby deposits, which are also corundum, are usually less concentrated. We've seen data from some mines suggesting they might only produce between half a carat and maybe 2 carats of cuttable ruby per ton.
And less.
And the difference between a common, opaque, rough ruby and a fine, transparent, saturated pigeon blood red ruby it's vast. That exceptional material is an infinitesimal fraction of the total yield. It's the single greatest driver of ruby's incredible value.
So if sapphires and rubies are measured in carats per ton, how do we even quantify the yield for emeralds? They form under different conditions, right? In host rock dunes.
Emeralds are a whole different level of geological caprice. They are the definition of inconsistent. Miners might move many tons of hard host rock, not gravel, but solid rock, just to yield a few grams of emerald rough.
A few grams from tons of rock.
In places like Colombia and Zambia, the average yield in the rock mass might be less than 1% emerald-bearing material. And of that 1%, maybe only a quarter of that is of a quality suitable for cutting.
So a single, clear 1 carat emerald, which is tiny,
Right.
that represents the physical movement and processing of potentially multiple tons of solid rock.
Using labor-intensive methods followed by years of experience sorting. That is the core takeaway. The value comes from the successful confluence of intense geology over millennia and intensive ethical human labor against these incredible odds of extreme scarcity.
When you see a high-quality stone, you're looking at a true geological and human miracle.
You really are.
That reframes the entire conversation around value. We've traced the whole story today, from the Earth's deep core through this modern shift to employee-owned co-ops. We've detailed the grueling daily labor and the essential environmental contract of land restoration.
And every single gemstone that reaches a store is the product of that entire process. Geology, human labor, environmental recovery, and sustainable business practices.
The good news for you, the collector, the buyer, is that you are increasingly able to trace your stones back to these ethical, community-supported origins.
Which ensures your purchase supports the entire positive framework we've discussed.
It fundamentally changes how you look at a high price tag. It's not just a charge for a shiny rock. It's an acknowledgement of the whole scarcity-driven ethical process that brought it into existence.
Which I think raises an important question for you to consider. If understanding this extensive process, the community support, the intense physical labor, and the extreme scarcity measured in tiny carats per ton, if that adds such undeniable depth to the stone, how does this knowledge fundamentally change the experience of reading an appraisal report or even just viewing a piece of fine jewelry in a showcase? Does the stone's story become more valuable than the stone itself? Something to mull over the next time you see that flash of color in a velvet box.